Hello everyone. I had done a video earlier where I showed you how to send the attachments from your SharePoint list via email to someone. And then as a response to that video, I got a request from one viewer that I should also show how to get the attachments from SharePoint list into OneDrive. So here's a quick screenshot. Let's say you have a list item which has attachment. How do you put that in your OneDrive? OneDrive for Business. So for the setup, this is my SharePoint list. In the communication site, it's called issue tracker. Let's look at this first item in the list. And as you can see, there are some attachments here. And here is my OneDrive. This is where I want to put them. Let me just clear whatever I had earlier. Okay, so this is where I want to put those attachments. So list has two attachments and I want to put them in the OneDrive. So how do I do that? For doing that, you have to use PowerAutomate or flow. So let me first show you the flow that I have here ready, and then I'll also show you how to do that very quickly. So the concepts are very similar to my earlier video on how to get the attachments from a SharePoint list. Uh, this one is relatively simpler because once you get the attachments, you just create the file. So let's see from the beginning. Your trigger for the flow or trigger for Power Automate is you select the SharePoint list, the name of the list, get the attachment. So if you recall from my previous video, there are two important concepts to remember. First action is get attachments. It doesn't really give you attachment contents, it just gives you list of the attachments that you have and you get their IDs. And then for each of those attachments, you get the content of that and then you create the file. So this is the structure. If I show you some previous run, for example this one, this will show you what kind of data that you get. So for my testing, when I looked at that, look at this SharePoint list, which has, when you create an item or modify, you get the attachments. So like I said, this get attachments, this just gets the list of the attachments. So in the response, you see these attachments coming in. It doesn't really have the content of the attachment. Now for each of them, because that item had two attachments, so it shows two items in the list, but it doesn't have the content. Now for each of them, you go and get their content. So what you do, you get their ID, get the content, and all you have to do is for those contents, you just create the file in OneDrive. You can put the name of whatever you get and then put the output. And that's all you have to do. It's as simple as that. If you want to do it from scratch, let me show you how to do that. Go to flow, create a new flow. I'll say automated cloud flow. My trigger is when an item is created or modified in SharePoint. So I'll click on that and I will use the SharePoint site. This is the site where I have this list that I showed you. The name of the list is, for my test, I'm using issue tracker. Okay, so that means whenever I create or modify something and I need to get the attachment. So attachments, I got list of attachments. Again, for this one, I have to get the SharePoint site, get the name of the list and the ID. So for which item you want to get the list of attachments? The item that was created or modified. So I'll just take the output of this ID, so dynamic content ID here. Okay, next step. Now I want to get the attachment content. So I'll say content. So get attachment content. Okay, and again I have to give the address of SharePoint site. So going back to the same thing, list name, issue tracker, ID. So notice there are two IDs. First ID is ID of the list item. So that means ID of this item that was created or modified, which is this. uh, PowerAutomate is doing some intelligence here to just show me the relevant one. For file identifier, I have to find the ID that we get from the attachments. So output of this get attachment step. So click on that. And that should give you, you notice that PowerAutomate automatically did this apply to each. So it had some intelligence which says that you can get multiple attachments. So we need to get the attachment content for each of them one by one. So that's why this apply to each automatically was inserted here by Flow or PowerAutomate. That's a nice feature. Now I see add an action because now I have the content. I just need to put that in the OneDrive. So operation, where do you want to put it? I want to put that in OneDrive. So I search for OneDrive. As you might know, Microsoft has two OneDrives, which sometimes gets confusing from branding perspective. But we want to put that in OneDrive for Business. This is what you get as part of Office 365. Just simple OneDrive is for consumers when you use your Hotmail or Live or those accounts. So choose OneDrive for Business, and I want to create a file in OneDrive for Business. Okay, where do you want to create it? I'm just going to create that in root for now, but you can choose whatever folder makes sense in your scenario. What name? I can pick any name. I can add the display name plus my own identifier if I want to keep it unique. But for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to choose the display name of the file that I got from my prior steps. And the content is whatever I get from this step, which is attachment content. And that's it. It's as simple as that. Now your flow is ready. You can save it and you can test it. For testing, I'm choosing manually because for triggering this, I'm going to modify one of the existing items in the list. So I'll say manual and say save and test. It's saving. Okay, it's saved. So let's go back to my SharePoint list, and just for triggering this, I'm going to modify this description. I'll do a fake modification. I'll just remove the number 1. So now after this, hopefully my flow is triggered. Yes, it is triggered. It is doing something. So as you can see, it triggered that item is created or modified. It got the list of attachments because it recognized that this item has 2 attachments, and now for each of them it's going and getting the content and creating the file. So it's all completed successfully. As you can see, let's go back to our OneDrive, which is this one, and see what happened. Let me refresh it. And as you can see, these 2 attachments are saved here. These 2 attachments are the same attachments that we had in this SharePoint list. So hope this video was helpful. This video is simpler than the previous one where you had to send these attachments as the email, but this is also important for some of the use cases that you might have. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thank you so much for your time.